All right. So too often our ask of volunteers is just like way too high. It's like this total bait and switch, right? I mean, it's like, hey, would you like to volunteer? Um, no big deal. You just have to give me every Wednesday and every Sunday for the rest of your life. And we need you to visit your students, football games, basketball games, get involved in their lives, birthday parties, and text them, email them, and take them out to lunch. No big deal. Okay, so it's just too much, right? And so oftentimes in ministry we have this like all or nothing approach to our volunteers, and it's like you're either doing everything. So you're a small group leader, you're visiting your students, you're texting your students, you are there on Wednesdays, you're there on Sundays, or we don't have a place for you. Sorry, go check out the nursery, right? And so, what I would encourage you to highly consider is having some layers of your ministry involvement. So, what do I mean by that? So, maybe a entry point might be some chaperones, right? Oh, yeah. And top of all of that, you're going to ask your leaders to go to summer camps and overnight events. And so look, just maybe adding these layers. So starting at the bottom, maybe you have a chaperone as a layer, right? Background checked, the whole deal, right? But all of these people are going to be doing is going to be helping you on special events throughout the year. So, hey, I'd be willing to drive our van, or hey, maybe someone like for me, oftentimes I've had people that were bus drivers, right? Maybe they were bus drivers for the school district, something like that. And so I'd ask them, hey, would you be willing to be a chaperone in our youth ministry? Would you just be willing to be on our list and maybe summer camp drive the bus and maybe stay with us if it's overnight, right? Something like that. Would you be willing to drive kids to special events when we have opportunities, when we just are going to go out somewhere? Maybe it's just, a mom or something like that that's willing to every once in a while just go and drive and do some things, right? So a chaperone level, right? Again, background checked, gone through some basic level of youth ministry involvement training, that kind of stuff. So again, but it's an entry point, right? It's not all or nothing. I'm not asking you to lead a small group. I'm not even really asking you to do all that much above and beyond being a decent human being, believer in Jesus, and driving a van, a bus, a car, whatever it might be, once, twice, 3 times throughout the year, right? Okay, so that's maybe an entry point. Another entry point might be a volunteer. And maybe what that looks like is maybe they show up early and to your youth service and do check-in, right? And they just stand there, they're smiling. This is a great point, in my opinion, to bring in some of your VIPs, your senior saints, some of those people that maybe are a little bit older in your church, and to get them involved. Super easy place for them to get there. Just get there, show up early, hang out, smile, check some students in, put a big name tag on and greet people, right? Maybe they run the snack bar for you. I've had people that took the snack bar to a whole new level because that's all they did. And so they eventually created meals, and they were doing entire meal for students before services, and we sold them for like $1, right? And that's all they did. That was their involvement, was they made these meals. Okay, so a chaperone, a volunteer. Maybe you've got like a gymnasium. Maybe that volunteer, all they do is hang out in the gymnasium. Again, background checked, some basic entry level of youth ministry involvement, but you're not asking them for their entire life, super involved. Just, hey, set up the gymnasium with basketballs and volleyballs and things like that, and just be there, right? And then maybe you have another layer where it's small group leader. And this is where you're asking for some higher level of commitment. And you're asking them, hey, we want you to be there most Wednesdays, right? and lead a small group, discussion group. And these are people that are a little bit more committed, willing to be there on a very consistent level. These are people that are willing to do some of that follow-up and things like that. Then maybe you have like another level where it's like an intern, right? And these are maybe some college students, maybe some high capacity seniors in high school, things like that, that are willing to come in even earlier, maybe throughout the week, and do some extra work for you at a deeper level. And so what happens is this creates a very circular or even up and down involvement, and it's not you're completely in or you're completely out. I've had people come in as a chaperone, they go on events, they get excited, and they want to move up into a volunteer. And they're there on a weekly basis, setting up, tearing down, whatever like that. And then they're like, man, actually, I want to get more involved even more. And they become a small group leader. I've had that. Also, I've had people start as a small group leader, and maybe they're a small group leader for a year or two, and all of a sudden they get something happens at their job. It changes, right? And all of a sudden it's like, oh man, like work is just really crazy right now. I need to move down out of a small group leader into a volunteer, right? Or, hey, I need to go from a lead small group leader into an assistant small group leader, right? So you've got these layers where it's not all or nothing, right? And so you're able to increase your involvement where people can stay involved and move down in level of commitment, or they can continue to move up into higher, deeper, more committed levels of leadership. And this is a way to get really high capacity people to be involved, because it's not just all or nothing. And I'm a big fan of doing it in seasons. So, hey, can you commit to being a small group leader for a year, 9 months, whatever it might be? And not just you're signed up for the rest of your life. And if you decide to not do that anymore, you failed, you didn't succeed, right? But can you do it for 9 months? Can you do it for 2 years, whatever it might be? And then at the end of that, towards the end of that, you're evaluating and say, hey, is this a good fit for you? Do you want to continue going? We would love to have you going. And what you're going to find too is that people will fall in love with it and want to keep going, but you're giving them some easy points where they get to decide, hey, yeah, I want to keep going. Another thing I like to do is to take breaks. Okay. Take breaks, give people some time off, right? Maybe during the summer, you take your small groups off. If you're a high impact, very involved small groups church ministry, take a break, take the summer off, and let your small group leaders not have to be there on every Wednesday night, and to feel a little bit of relax and feel a little bit of like, oh man, we could go away for a little while and not feel like I'm gonna miss my students or miss out on that. What happens is this: a lot of people are like, oh man, they're gonna get disconnected. No. Actually, most of the time what happens is they begin to miss the small group. Also, what this does is allows you the opportunity to rearrange some things and look to the next school year and say, man, do we need to combine groups? Do we need to multiply groups? Do we need to move some leaders around? Things like that. It gives you a natural break. And then when you relaunch, you can do that with excitement, with passion. Man, this is what we're doing. This is how we're doing it. This is what we're growing, all that kind of stuff. And so I'd encourage you to look at your leadership team and put in some levels of commitment so that's not just all or nothing. I think oftentimes our ask is just too high. And when people start not being able to commit with it, they just feel like they got to leave and bounce and be done, right? Also, I think oftentimes many groups have just like one small group leader for 10 students. And we're expecting them to be at those football games and basketball games and those chess meets and those whatever it might be, right? That's a lot. And if they miss a Wednesday, all of a sudden those students are like, oh man, they're displaced. They got to move into another group for the night. They got to do something. They got to fill in. So I suggest having some assistant small group leaders, so that way when you're meeting, it's not just one person in charge of all of them, and it helps them divide up all of that pastoral care elements that we want them to be a part of as well. And so again, divide up some levels of leadership so people can get involved in just not an all or nothing type of ask. It's just too much when